Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger. Up next on the GM, Lamar Jackson versus Baltimore Ravens History Part 2, the legendary top 10. Let's talk about it. When we closed out video 1, we had Lamar Jackson positioned at number 7. Behind him was Marshall Yanda coming in at number 10, Justin Tucker at number 9, and the Baltimore Ravens all-time leading rusher Jamal Lewis at number 8. So the question for this video is going to be, will Lamar Jackson break into the Ravens top 5 of all time? As we get started, let me give you a disclaimer. There will absolutely be some players on this list of 3 that you disagree with. Some of them you will think is too low, too high, or do not belong on the top 10 at all. But I ask, if you listen with an open mind and hear the case for each player, maybe we can find some common ground. But with no further delay, let's get into this top 10. Number 7 on the Baltimore Ravens all-time list is Chris McAllister. McAllister is a 6'1", 200-plus pound cornerback drafted out of Arizona. The Baltimore Ravens selected McAllister with pick 10 in the first round of the 1999 draft. McAllister, as a rookie, stepped onto a big stage, played in all 16 games, intercepting 5 passes. McAllister was never not great. He was never in a situation where he didn't live up to expectations. Why does McAllister make this list? Well, McAllister makes this list. 1, he was born a Raven. 2, he has longevity, being in a Baltimore Ravens uniform for 10 seasons. McAllister also has elite level personal accomplishments, being a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro first team in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. He also collected 26 interceptions, taking 5 of them back for touchdowns. Elite numbers in his 10 years in a Ravens uniform. He also played a big role as the Baltimore Ravens' number 1 corner on a championship team, helping them capture their first Super Bowl. Chris McAllister, number 7 on the Baltimore Ravens all-time list. Number 6 on the Baltimore Ravens all-time list is Terrell Suggs. Suggs was a 6'3", 265-pound defensive end linebacker. The Baltimore Ravens chose Terrell Suggs in the first round with pick number 10 overall in the 2003 draft. The hype and expectations were high for Suggs as a rookie. He stepped up and met those expectations, eclipsing 10 sacks in his first year. Why does Suggs make this list? Well, Suggs was born a Raven. He has longevity. He has 16 years in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. He has personal accomplishments. He has 7 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro. He has 132.5 sacks as a Raven. He's a Super Bowl champion, and he was always big time. Countless rivals, with one of the Baltimore Ravens' biggest nemesis being Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Terrell Suggs, number 6 on the all-time Ravens list. Now, I gave you guys a disclaimer that this will be the video where there will be some controversy. And so here it is. Number 5 on the all-time Baltimore Ravens list is Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was a 6'6", 245-pound quarterback drafted out of Delaware. The Baltimore Ravens chose Joe Flacco in the first round of the 2008 draft with pick 18. Joe Flacco had to step into a big role as the Baltimore Ravens had been trying to find a quarterback of the future after trying out guys like Steve McNair in previous years. Now, I know this is a controversial ranking, but to tell the truth, Joe Flacco was a controversial type quarterback, not because he brought it on himself, but just simply because there was always questions around Joe Flacco of if he could win the big game, could he make the play, and could he really put this offense on his back. But I'll tell you what, the truth is buried deep in the numbers. Over Joe Flacco's 7 years, from his rookie season to the completion of his 7th season, Joe Flacco was 72-40 with a more than 65% winning percentage in the regular season. Joe Flacco was consistently a 60+% passer, which always kept him on the verge of a breakout player or a bust. Nevertheless, when you look into Joe Flacco, he makes this list, one, because he was born a Raven. Number two, he does have the longevity, being in a Baltimore Ravens uniform for 11 seasons. Number three, he does have personal accomplishments, being the Baltimore Ravens all-time leading passer with over 38,000 yards. He's also the Baltimore Ravens all-time leader in passing touchdowns. And when you really put Joe Flacco's career under the microscope and you take a look at his first 5 seasons, he was right on par with winning with guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, and other greats of his era. Joe Flacco was not an All-Pro, nor was he a Pro Bowler as a Raven. But what he was Super Bowl 47 MVP. When you consider the ride that Joe Flacco took the Baltimore Ravens on, you have to understand that he put that team on his back and led them to that Super Bowl. Joe Flacco, number 5 on the Baltimore Ravens all-time list. All right, let's sum everything up. Chris McAllister is on the all-time Ravens list, coming in at number 7 because he became the standard bearer for the cornerback position. Chris McAllister was the epitome of the big corner, 6'1", 200+ pounds. He had great athleticism, great coverability, good speed. He was a right place, right time kind of player. He was the type of cornerback that quarterbacks did not want to test. Case in point, 26 interceptions and 5 of them being returned for touchdowns. Chris McAllister is the reason why the Baltimore Ravens have an attraction for the plus-sized corner or the big corner. So when you look at the long history of Baltimore Ravens secondary players, you can't ignore Chris McAllister's impact and stepping into a big-time role, being the lockdown corner for a Super Bowl team in his 2nd season. Big-time playmaking for such a young, talented guy. Chris McAllister, number 7. When we consider the 6th position, we have Terrell Suggs. And I know this is the first point of contention because a lot of people have Terrell Suggs on the Baltimore Ravens Mount Rushmore, or at least have him top 5. Nevertheless, I have Terrell Suggs at number 6. Does not mean he wasn't great. Does not mean that his 132.5 sacks did not have an impact on the Baltimore Ravens' glory. But here's the truth. I had to ding him a little bit because although he was great, although he was a Defensive Player of the Year in 2011, in the 2012 season when the Baltimore Ravens made a Super Bowl run, Terrell Suggs had torn his ACL, and that left him available for only 8 games. And when you look at the win-loss record when he was available, they were no better in win-losses with him than without him. In fact, that was the same season that Ray Lewis went down with a torn biceps muscle, if I remember correctly. So it was almost as if they were trading places. Terrell Suggs missed the first half of the season, and Ray Lewis missed the second half of the season. Nevertheless, when you get to that playoff series of games where you had the wild card round, the divisional round, the AFC Championship, and the Super Bowl, Terrell Suggs had little to no impact. In the entire playoff run, all 4 games, Terrell Suggs had only 6 to 8 tackles total. That doesn't mean he wasn't great. It just means his impact on the particular Super Bowl was less than what you would have expected. I guarantee if I hadn't told you he didn't have but 6 to 8 tackles out of the whole playoff series, you wouldn't have believed those numbers. But it's true. Go back and pull the stats for yourself. And so I have him at number 6 because he is the all-time leading guy in sacks. He was a terror. He was entertaining, and he was a dog for the Baltimore Ravens. He is one of the all-time greats, but I couldn't put him in top 5 over Joe Flacco. Let me talk a little bit more about Joe Flacco, continuing my conversation from earlier about him. Joe Flacco makes the top 5, and here is why. When you home in on his first 5 seasons, right, he made and led the Baltimore Ravens to becoming a winner. That defense wasn't always top notch or top 5. It was super good, right? But when you look at the season 2007 specifically, before Joe Flacco got there, the Baltimore Ravens had a losing record and missed the playoffs. When the Baltimore Ravens drafted Joe Flacco in 2008, they went from a single-digit win team to a double-digit win team, falling off the next year in his second season, going 9-7, and then he goes 12-4, 12-4, 10-6, and wins the Super Bowl. But here's what really made me push him to the top 5. He's absolutely a winner, and his winning percentage in his first 5 seasons is very similar to Lamar Jackson's in his first 5 seasons, which is something we laud Lamar Jackson for. So we can't celebrate Lamar Jackson for having a high winning percentage, but then forget about Joe Flacco, who actually captured a Super Bowl in his first 5 seasons. All right, but let me point out one thing that I didn't even realize until I started really doing the research. We understand that the Baltimore Ravens won the Super Bowl 2012-2013 season, but do we remember that it was the year previous that Joe Flacco had led them to the AFC Championship? And without this play right here that you're seeing on the screen, where you see Lee Evans either drops the ball or gets the ball knocked out of his hand, either way, Joe Flacco put the ball where it was supposed to be. If Lee Evans catches that ball, the Baltimore Ravens go to the Super Bowl. One, they win the AFC Championship and go to the Super Bowl. So now you have the Ravens going to back-to-back Super Bowls and being the AFC champion 2 years straight, led by Joe Flacco. Wasn't because Joe Flacco didn't play great. It was because of a drop ball or a great defensive play. That's what made me push Joe Flacco to number 5. Because if you don't go back and really study the numbers and really look at tape, you don't really remember that Joe Flacco was a winner. And part of the reason why also that I give him the number 5 spot, he and Lamar Jackson's career are very, very similar. What? Why would I say that? Well, Joe Flacco was never given a number 1 wide receiver up until the time that they went and got Anquan Bolden. A lot of the same criticism that Lamar Jackson gets, Joe Flacco was getting. Can he win? Can he make the big play? Can they really trust him? All those kind of things were said about Joe Flacco. All those kind of things were said about Lamar Jackson. And just like the Baltimore Ravens have struggled to really give him a number 1 go-to wide receiver, they did the same thing until they went out and got Anquan Bolden. And when they gave him a number 1 wide receiver, what did Joe Flacco do? He went and won the Super Bowl. Another similarity that Joe Flacco had to go through was, a first-round pick. He played out his rookie deal, and they picked up his 5th-year option. When all other quarterbacks were being paid earlier, Joe Flacco had to continue to prove himself in order to get his money. He went out and won the Super Bowl, and they had to pay him. Now, when you come to Lamar Jackson was already a winner, already a league MVP. And the Baltimore Ravens made him play out his rookie deal and then put him on the 5th-year option. That 5th-year option expired before they paid him. See, there's a lot of similarities. And so for Joe Flacco to stand the test of time and put the team on his back, and just in case we forget about Joe Flacco's performance in that Super Bowl run, look at some of these numbers. 1,100 yards, a 117 passer rating, 11 touches, no interceptions. That tied Joe Montana's record for the most passing touchdowns in a Super Bowl run with no interceptions. And he was Super Bowl 47 MVP. That's why Joe Flacco is number 5. Without Joe Flacco's performance, the Baltimore Ravens lose that Denver game. And now we're talking about a franchise with only one Super Bowl and really no winning ways. We're celebrated because we are an expansion team of 1996 and have captured 2 Super Bowls. When you think about the other guys other teams that came in with us as expansion teams, you had the Jacksonville Jaguars, no Super Bowls. The Carolina Panthers, no Super Bowls. And there's countless other teams, no Super Bowls. And so Joe Flacco, number 5 on the all-time Ravens list. I'm your guy Boulanger. Stay tuned for part 3, where Lamar Jackson takes his place on Mount Rushmore. I'm out.